Hello. Oh my gosh, I'm excited to be here. I thank you all so much for opening your hearts and opening this space for me. This is the first time I've ever given a Sunday talk, and I am a little bit nervous. Bob asked before the pray-in at the first service if there was anything that I needed that maybe wasn't here, anything that they could provide. And I actually thought, I need a vomit bag. Like, on the airplane, because I'm kind of nervous. But I wanted to thank Fred. Is he still in here? Okay, so I was really inspired before the first service as we did the pray-in with the music and the band. And I admitted to Fred, I have a dream. I think I'd like to play with the band. And I thought, and I had offered in the first service, because I'm really good at air guitar. Or not. So I had Dave go out to the car between services. I do have an instrument. I would like to be first chair recorder in the band. People, I can belt out Twinkle Twinkle like you have never heard before. And I know this doesn't have the bell, and not all the pieces are working, but it will sound great with the band. So, and Kelly was here. My husband Dave is here. We started attending this church 12 years ago before we even had our first child. And Kelly was the soloist the first time that we came to church. So it's really neat to have her singing today. And then she closed the lesson this morning with my husband's favorite song. So it's just a really special day, and I want to thank her for being here too. So, I felt really good after the first service. I got through it. It's a big goal, and I was walking down the hall feeling pretty peaceful. And then I needed a drink. I thought I'd go to the water fountain, but I have this thing. So I'm thirsty because I couldn't get a drink. I didn't want to get electrocuted before the service. No, I had bottled water. But I wanted to tell you a little bit about my upbringing in church, because I was raised in a church, and it was like Unity in that there were 4 walls and a roof. That's where the similarities end, because I grew up in a fundamental Baptist church. Now, I'm not sure where the fun part came in. I was there every Sunday, and I never got the fun business, but it was fundamental. Most of you may have seen excerpts on movies, or maybe you were raised in a fundamental Baptist church or have an idea. But I truly went to one of these churches where every Sunday the minister would get up on the stage and jump on the pews and scream about fire and brimstone and get himself very, very worked up. In my church, we learned that women were not worthy to be leaders of a church, that children were to be seen and not heard, and that basically each and every one of us was a broken sinner who was only eligible to be redeemed because Jesus had shed his blood for us. So wasn't the most supportive kind of upbringing to be raised in a church. But every Sunday, the minister would get on stage and get all riled up, and he would start asking for amens. So he would make statements like, I believe that we are broken sinners and that we're born wicked, but it's only through Christ that we can get into heaven. Can I get an amen? And everybody would go, amen. And then he'd say things like, I believe that if you're not here in this pew every Sunday, if you're out there sinning in the world and you're going to hell, can I get an amen? And all the people would say, amen. And I was a 10-year-old little girl, and I couldn't say amen. It didn't feel right to me. So my parents would elbow me, give the man an amen. Give it to him. And I'd go, First of all, because I was a girl, and secondly, I was a kid. I was supposed to be seen and not heard, right? But more than that, just didn't feel right to me. That way of thinking just didn't feel right. So finally, I just quit talking about God, and I just got silent. I lost my voice for a long time. But look who's on the platform now. A woman with kids who are super loud, who you can often hear before you actually see. And I have a couple of things that I'd like to say, and maybe after a couple of these statements, I could get an amen. I believe that we are all, every one of us, created by a good and loving Creator who made us perfectly and divinely in the image and greatness of good. Can I get an amen? Amen. I believe that no matter where you have been and no matter what has happened to you, no matter where you sit right now, that there is love inside you, there is goodness dwelling in you, and you are capable of great things. Can I get an amen? Amen. I believe that all are called and that all are chosen and that we are all loved by Spirit. Can I get an amen? Amen. I believe that each and every one of you came into this life for a purpose, came in with a purpose, and that purpose is to be the face of God and the hands and feet of love. Can I get an amen? Amen. Amen. That's what I'm talking about. That is soul fire right there. Amen. So, after I left the church and after I took a break from that, I had an experience when I was about 26. You see, I had worked so hard my whole life, and a lot of it was because of the church upbringing. I was raised thinking it's by your works that you are saved. We're here to sacrifice. We're here to do right, make everybody happy. And so, as I went through college and as I went through my life, I had pushed myself and pushed myself and pushed myself. I was a perfectionist. And I'd gone to nursing school, and at the age of 26, I was working full-time at a job in a hospital as a nurse. Now, I had got this whole work hard thing down to an art. Somebody needed me to pick up an extra shift, I was there. I worked and worked and worked and worked and worked, because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. And I knew I wanted to help people, it's true, but I was pushing too hard. So one morning, I'd completed a 12-hour night shift. I went out to my car, and the shift had not been particularly good, but it hadn't been necessarily hard either. I was a little bit tired because I'd been up all night working. I started the car and the radio came on and a song started playing. I don't exactly know what happened. I still don't to this day. All I know is that I started to cry. I cried and I cried and I cried. And I couldn't stop crying. I didn't know how I was going to get myself home. I was crying so hard, I didn't know how I would drive. But I stopped myself and I said, I got to get control. I don't cry. I worked hard as my mom was experiencing her illness. I went to school 2 days after she passed so that I could get my good grades and I could keep performing. I could hold it together. I didn't want to cry. I wasn't supposed to. But I got home and I was crying. I drove through tears. I got home, it was 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't get undressed for bed. I just went and I laid down and I cried myself to sleep. I woke up because I had to go back to work that night for my second 12-hour night shift. I woke up and I was crying. I didn't like it. Because I was living a dream. But it wasn't my dream. And my life was full. But I was crying because I felt empty inside. I'd pushed and shoved and driven myself so hard that I was empty inside. I was burned out. I pulled myself together and I went to work that night, but I was never the same. It was a turning point in my life. I had to let go. I had to let go. I had to cry many, many, many tears. I had to forget much of what I thought I knew. had to in order to make it through. But there was one thing that I held on to. It was a tiny ember in me, and it seemed like a harebrained idea, and it seemed a little bit crazy. But there was something in me that thought, maybe I didn't come here to make everybody else in the world happy. Maybe I came here to find God within me. Maybe I didn't come here to make everything nice and neat on the outside. Maybe I came here to find the Spirit within. Maybe I didn't come here to be successful at a job. Maybe I came here to be an expression for God, to be a voice for love. Maybe. I didn't know, but I held on to that because I hoped that maybe that was true. Turns out it was. It's true, and it's true for you too. I held on to that little spark. I held on. And over the next year, I worked hard. I worked very hard. So I was reflecting. At home, my family lights a lot of fires in our backyard. And it came to me last fall as we were burning one of our fires that each and every time we light a fire, there's certain procedures that we take, certain steps that we go through in order to ignite the fire, to make it a good fire, one that'll keep us warm, that'll keep burning all through the night. And as I was reflecting around the fire one evening last fall, I realized it really wasn't much different than when I learned to ignite that spirit fire in me, when I learned how to feel that greatness of God that was living inside me. And I came to understand that really there's 4 steps in igniting Spirit's greatness within us and in lighting that soul fire. Because if you just walk outside and you toss a match on the ground, it may not even light. And if it does, you may be in trouble and you may need to run. And none of us in here are probably going to spontaneously combust with soul fire either. There are certain steps that we take and a process that we can undergo to keep that flame burning, to stoke that, to keep the kindling there, to keep ourselves inspired, burning bright. And the first step is you got to clear the ground. You got to make yourself a nice spot where you can light this fire. And I had to do that. I had to get clear. I had to get real clear. And it took a lot of work. So there's 2 things in our lives that we need to clear. First, we got to clear out our minds. Now, I tell you what, when I was 26, when I went through that burnout, I had pieces of my mind all over the place. The church had a piece of my mind, my family had a piece of my mind, work had a piece of my mind, the beauty industry had a piece of my mind, everybody had all these little pieces of my mind. I had no peace of mind, none. But I came to understand that could change, that I could undo some of that thinking, that I could choose some of my own thoughts. I could change my mind. So I had this desire to learn a little bit more about how to choose and how to change my mind, but I wasn't exactly sure how to support myself in that. When one of my friends said, "Have you ever heard of a church called Unity?" And I said, "Well, no, I haven't, but it sounds kind of nice." And she said, "Well, you should go." Now, I was living in Springfield, Missouri at the time, so this wasn't here. But I thought, well, I'll give it a try. Now, I want you to know, yes, I had left the Fundamental Baptist Church, but I had not attended any other church. Because I was a little bit raw from church. But I had been so indoctrinated and so placed in that rigid structure that I was really afraid, what other church would I go to? And if I did, what would the people from the Baptist church say? What would happen? So there was a lot of uncertainty. So when I went to that church, when I went to that Unity Church, I was kind of scared. I thought I might be joining a cult. I pulled the Unity Church in Springfield. I hear there's two now. This is years and years and years ago when I went. So it was a little bit outside of town. Whew. Didn't want anybody to see me. So I pulled into the parking lot, and I kind of slunk down in the seat. Because I really thought, what if somebody sees me? But no. I'm strong. I can do this. I don't know what's going to be inside there. I don't know what's going to be waiting behind those doors. But I'm going to do this. I have to figure this out. So I got out of the car, and I had butterflies. But a nice greeter opened the door to the church. I don't know who he was. Just some friendly man. But he looked at me. He looked at me right in my face, and he smiled as he looked into my eyes. And he said, "I'm really glad you're here." He didn't know me, but he meant that. Now, when I was growing up at church, it was, "Why weren't you here on Sunday?" Or, "You missed Wednesday service." But this man said, "I'm glad you're here." I felt welcome, and it was a big step. So I went into the sanctuary, and I sat down, and the music was nice. It wasn't anything like we've got, but it was very nice. But the message that Sunday was about affirmations. How to change your thinking, how to think differently. Wasn't that convenient? I had a desire, and there it was. So I learned that day about how to use more positive thoughts to get myself into a more receptive state of receiving and to a more positive state of being. I cleared my mind. Now, did it happen overnight? No. There were some days that I would use an affirmation 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 times. Sometimes it would stick. Sometimes I would have to use it 50, 60, 70, 80 times more. But it was a start, and it started to work. So I cleared my mind. Now, there was something else that needed to be cleared, and that was my heart. Because my heart had been hurting. I'd had to say goodbye to someone that I loved so much, which was my mom. And then my family changed forever. I had a job that I didn't love, and I thought I was supposed to. I felt like maybe even God didn't love me. My heart really, really hurt. So I had to clear my heart. First thing I did to clear my heart, because as I said, I was a perfectionist. I tried to be a perfect perfectionist, but you can't. What I found, though, is that perfectionism is like a noose to the heart. And every time you drive for perfect, you choke off a little more spirit. You strangle yourself from a little more joy. So I had to undo that. And I had to give myself some permission. So, you remember in school when you had the permission slips that your parents had to sign for you to do something fun, like go on a field trip or go to the zoo with your class? I started making for myself permission slips. So I would write in the morning, I would get up and I would write, "I, Steffany, give myself permission today to ease up." And then I would sign it. And any time during the day, I would start feeling that twinge of push, or any time I would start putting down that pressure on myself, I would say, "Oh, I've got the permission slip." And I would give that to myself, and I'd remind myself I had permission to make mistakes. I gave myself permission to trip and fall. I gave myself permission to stumble around a little bit. I gave myself permission to get mad every now and then. But then I quickly got over it. But once I learned to give myself permission to accept where I was at and to let myself be, so that then Spirit could move through me, so that I could reconnect with that Spirit, I felt so free. And I, for the first time in my life, started to feel joy. And it was wonderful. So I got my mind clear, and then I started clearing my heart. Now, the second thing after I did to clear my heart, after I gave myself permission to do all these things, was I started doing what I call goodbye, hello. I had to do these trades in my life. I was pretty good at doing guilt. Anybody in here ever felt guilty? Yeah, I had this guilt thing down. I had insecurity pretty much mastered. I'm a little insecure on that one, but I felt like I was pretty good at insecurity. I had to change the way I related to those feelings. So whenever I noticed myself being anxious, I would say, "Goodbye, anxiety. Hello, peace that passes understanding with God." And if I felt doubt, I would say, "Goodbye, doubt. Hello, blessed assurance, because love is in me and love is mine." When I felt like I was struggling, I would say, "Goodbye, struggle. Hello, inspiration. Hello." And then I would wait, and I would greet those things with an open heart and with open arms. Goodbye, world. Hello, God. It felt free. And I felt clear. So I cleared my mind and I cleared my heart. Now, it's a process. It's a process because, as you know, weeds grow. Sometimes they grow quickly. And sometimes we have to pull back the thickets and cut back the brambles. It takes time to get clear, but it's worth it. It is so worth it because when you're clear, you can be free. And you can feel uninhibited that source of love that's within you. So step one in lighting that fire for spirit inside you is to clear the ground. Step two, when you're going to light a fire, is you need some kindling. You need something to burn, something to keep you ignited. So, did you know that right now, feels like you're sitting still, doesn't it? You're actually moving at 1,038 miles an hour as we rotate on our axis through space. You're moving over 1,000 miles an hour right now. Did you know that this second, over 1 trillion microscopic particles called neutrinos just passed through your body after having just left the sun? And 1 trillion more just did, and 1 trillion more just did. Amazing. Did you know that in 2009, 19,322 new forms of life were discovered on our planet and categorized and classified? And biologists estimate that there are 10 million expressions of life, forms of life that we have not even discovered yet. Did you know that if a sea star loses a leg, it will regenerate a leg? But did you know that the leg will regenerate a sea star? It's true. Did you know that if you spend $25 or more on certain items on Amazon.com, you will get free shipping? Did you know that? It's an amazing world that we live in. And learning is expansion, and expansion is fuel for your soul fire. So if knowledge is power, then growth is fuel for your soul's fire. So as we consciously become engaged in the world around us, as we become participants in this vibrant and living world, we become awakened co-creators in our lives. The more you learn about the physical world around you, the more you realize we cannot separate ourselves from one another, and we cannot separate ourselves from God. Did you know that the same rain that showers on us today is the same rains that showered on the dinosaurs? It's the same rains that were poured when Christ walked on the earth. There's no separation. And the more you learn about that, the more you embrace that, the more you can fuel this fire of greatness within you. It's true. Now, just when you're lighting a fire, amen. Amen. So, just when you're lighting a fire, you need different kinds of kindling to make the fire burn, right? So you need some flash stuff that burns real quick, just to get that spark to going. But you need some of those big logs too, so you can really sustain that fire. Same is true with the fuel that we use for our soul. So we all need to learn things that are fairly easy to master. So you go to the grocery store and you have a budget, and you stay in the budget, and you feel good because you did that. You learn about a new yoga class, you take the class, and you feel good. You start to understand the workings of your daily life, so you have these good successes that keep you inspired, that keep you engaged, that keep you walking the path. But if everything's easy, we get bored, we sort of check out, we just sort of skim by. Sometimes you need dreams and goals that are larger than life. You do. You need these big things that you're not going to master overnight because you shouldn't. You need things that you have to put a little effort into, because when you put effort, you grow. I had a goal. Now, of course, I went to nursing school and loved school, but I took chemistry class. Chemistry and I sort of had this little, come on, let's go to class. Okay, bye, we're done. I didn't really ever embrace chemistry. But last year, I had a goal for myself, and it was a really, really big goal. I wanted to be friends with chemistry. I wanted to get to understand the spirit of chemistry. And I decided that I would memorize all the elements on the periodic table. I didn't need to, but it was a really big goal. And I thought it would be fun, and it would be engaging, and just something that wasn't about earning more money or putting it on a resume. It was just something to fuel my fire, a goal to accomplish that would make me feel good. And I did it. If you want me to sing them to you after the service, I will. All 118 elements, try it. So it's important in life that you don't always have instant success, because when you work for something, you have to keep that fire burning, and you expand and you grow. So you got to clear the ground, and then you got to get the kindling. You got to get some fuel for the fire. So the next step, when you're going to ignite this greatness of spirit within you, you got to get some air. A fire without oxygen will not burn, will it? A soul without inspiration is going to deflate. So every single day, it's important to keep yourself inspired, not just by taking a breath, but by keeping yourself full of new thoughts and new ideas, new ways of viewing the world. Inspiration is when you let your heart take the lead and you let your vision show you something other than reality. So your heart leads and your vision reveals to you something bigger than what your eyes would ordinarily let you see. That's inspiration. And I think oftentimes we do a disservice to ourselves because we believe, we have this kind of false assumption that I'm just going to do this one thing and then I'll be done. Then I'll be done. I'm going to do this one exercise and I'm going to be fit. I'm going to eat this one power bar and the weight's going to be gone. I'm going to take this one class and I'm going to be enlightened. It doesn't work that way. I'm going to take one breath, and then I'm done. You got to breathe. You got to get inspired each and every day. Each and every day. There's so many ways to be inspired in life. Listen to music. Oh, it just lifts your spirit instantly in only a few notes. Watch movies that you love. Go outside and just take in the wonder of nature. Watch the clouds. It's so magical to watch how they move. It's so inspiring to be a part of this world. Lift a log and look at all the activity that's under there. It's so inspiring to see how nature has a way and how God expresses through everything. Get inspired every day. Read, learn, do something every day to keep yourself inspired. That's going to keep that fire burning. So you're going to clear the ground. You're going to gather the kindling. You gotta let the air flow. And what's next? The last step. What do you need for a fire? The spark. My favorite part. My favorite part. So the spark is lighting the fire of God within. That means you buy the shoes, but you go out and walk. That means you get the food, and then you eat it, and you feed yourself. You nourish your soul. It means you take the class, and you do the technique. You buy all the materials, and then you paint, and you draw, and you sing, and you dance, and you live awakened and inspired as spirit because you've ignited that soul fire. Soul fire is about action. It's about passion. It's about being love and doing spirit. It's getting busy for God. That's soul fire. And that's that flame that burns inside each and every one of us that helps us to live that greatness of spirit. Now, the greatness of spirit doesn't have to be you're running a company or the president or the CEO. You can do great things sitting right there in your pew. You are doing great things for your mom by being the light of God and by saying the prayer for protection. Greatness isn't about the world. It's about that love that we bring into the world. That's what's great. Don't be afraid to do things wrong because the spirit in you is always right. God is always right. Spirit is always love. And that is how you are created, my friends, each and every one of you. Are you going to clear the ground? Yes. Are you going to gather the kindling? Yes. Are you going to let the air flow and get inspired? Yes. Are you going to light the soul fire? Yes. Amen. All right. I think, Charlie, there was some concerns that I might be too quiet during the service. I don't think I was too quiet, was I? No. I'm excited for Spirit. I'm just so passionate for God, for this work. Each and every one of you, when I look out here, are beautiful and amazing expressions of God. And I am truly honored to be a part of this community. Truly. Because not only are each and every one of you on fire for God, but this is a community of light. This is a community of soul. And I feel so blessed to be a part of it. So in closing today, I can't believe I made it through. All right, so in closing today, so I have this new book that inspired my talk, but really it's a book that is about the inspiration of the Spirit in me. And it's called Soul Fire, and it's available as an ebook because it comes with a meditation and an audio lesson too. But I wanted to read it. I wanted to read a poem from the book to you in closing. And I want to speak it to the group, but I want you each to know that I'm speaking this to you individually too. You did not come here to struggle. You didn't come here to struggle. You came here to shine. You did not come here to get by. You came here to thrive. You were not sent down to wander lost and alone. You were lovingly called here. This is your home. You've not made it this far to get lost in the mire. It is time to ignite soul fire. Amen.